You're listening to Darby and Friends on 1490 WGCH. Carolyn Humphreys, welcome.
Thank you so much, Darby. It's really a pleasure to be here.
Well, indeed. And I got a little note just before you came in that you were parking the car. That's really down to the wire of pressure. My goodness.
I have tremendous good fortune.
Well, I'm glad to hear that. Now, you have a business called Sunlight Solar Energy, and it's dedicated to educating customers how to make environmentally responsible buying decisions. What exactly does that mean?
Well, it's nice to have alternatives to current situations that people aren't happy with. And a lot of people are very dissatisfied with having to pay the highest electrical rates in the nation. Connecticut's number one. I believe New York may have just passed us, but by a hair. And I'm saying continental United States. Hawaii pays higher rates. But why is that? And people feel like they have no control over that, when in fact there are products that will mean that you will pay, yes, a little bit more up front because you're prepaying for a period of time. And after that, it's all free. And it's all clean, so it's really appealing to people. So the solar option, there's a lot of options that fall into the sustainable category, but we offer solar electricity, solar hot water, and solar pool heating. And I have to tell you, pool heating is probably the absolute no-brainer of the group. You know, when I tell people it's a 2 or 3 year payback and they can finally swim in their pool again, you know, they're just astonished. It's such a modest investment, you know, for such great joy to be able to use our pools again.
All right. I have a friend who likes to swim in rather warm water, and her husband, every time she puts the heat on in her pool, he goes, "You see the dollars just floating up out of my pool?"
Poor man. Everybody sympathizes because you've made this big investment. You have this fabulous thing that you've rendered sort of, you tell yourself, I'm not going to heat it because we'll still use it. And then, of course, who wants to get into freezing cold water?
No.
You know, so yeah.
And how did you get interest in Sunlight Solar Energy?
Well, that's interesting you should ask, because I know you don't know the answer. I happen to have purchased a system from Sunlight Solar Energy, and I was so impressed with the investment. I mean, I went into it thinking I had a passive solar house, so I knew that there were benefits to sustainable living and sustainable building, but I really thought I was just going to have to bite the bullet and maybe pay the same thing over time, at least for my solar electric system, paying like way too much up front and then maybe recouping my investment. That's what I went in thinking. But it was going to be, my kids came home and said, "Mom," I don't know what they're teaching these kids, but they said, "Mom, you've destroyed my planet, and I want to know what you're going to do about it." That's just alarming, right? Like an 8, maybe a 7, 8-year-old says this to you, and you just look at them, you're like, look at the time. You know, recycling's not doing it, really? And I just decided that, you know, I at least needed to look into it. Actually, my husband instigated it. I do need to give him the credit, really, because I said, we can't afford it. Which is what everybody says. He said, let's just at least look into it. He gave me his spiel. And when I did look at it, the numbers were shocking to me that I'd have a payback of years somewhere between 10 and 11. And I was only figuring a 5% annual utility rate, right? Well, I've had it for 3 years. The rates have gone up way more than 5% every year. On the average, they go up 7.5%. If you take the 86% utility rises since the year 2000, that's 86% in the last 10 years.
No.
Yes. But when you compound, you can't just divide it. You get 9. I should tell you that. But yeah, then I just look silly for all the people who know better. 7.5% over time is a lot every year, though. You know, if you invest in an investment and you get 5%, right, your investment should vaguely double in 15 years, right? Well, the same thing happens to utility rates. If they even just go up a reasonable 5% every year, you're going to be paying double in 15 years. And that's the part I didn't like. You know, I wanted an alternative to that. And a lot of people don't realize there's an alternative. You don't have to just keep paying these electrical companies whatever they want for the rest of your life until you want to sit in the dark. You really, there's another
be
choice
cold.
Here, right? Well, we're not the best technology for most space heating problems. You know, I wish I were. Geothermal is a great solution for that. There's now a 30% federal tax credit for that, which is great. So this 30% federal tax credit is for all renewable energy. So not just solar. There's some other great stuff. And energy efficiency has so much money. You know, there's these funds from the American Recovery and Reinvestment Fund. Everybody wants to know, where are those federal funds going? You know, who's got them? Well, $4 million of them went into the Connecticut Clean Energy Fund for clean energy, you know, and they've decided to use it for thermal, for solar hot water, which we haven't really seen since the 70s. There have been no incentives for that. We've gotten a lot of subsidies for solar electricity, and believe me, it's allowed us to put in 550 installations in Connecticut. So people think people aren't getting it, but you know, your neighbors are hiding it on the back of their houses. And some of them have even said, I wish it were on the front so everybody can see what I've done. Because you're so pleased with yourself when you get one of these things, you know, because you're a savvy investor. You're saving the environment. It's such a win-win. You keep going, why doesn't everybody do this? Well, everybody can't. Everybody doesn't have a roof. When we look at a satellite picture and all we see is trees, we spend a lot of time breaking bad news to people. It's really worth calling in so you can assuage all guilt you might have felt because you probably don't even have a solar site. If you're just surrounded by trees, especially to the south, we don't care at all what's to the north. East and west, not so important. But when you look south of your roof, especially if you've got a nice big flat rectangular roof, you just go, wow, that roof gets sun all day if it's facing south. And so this is a better investment, the better your site. Right? I had a passive solar house.
Now, what does that mean?
What that means is I'm already facing perfectly solar south, which in Connecticut, due to 14 degrees of declination, is 194 on a compass. But if you're just watching the sun all day, you actually know what it means because you're not getting your compass out. You can see that the sun rises here and sets here. It's the point in the middle, that you're looking for. That's south, and you want to make sure you don't have too many trees because if you do, and there's particularly if they're in your neighbor's yard, you can't cut them down if you want to. And you can rest assured they're providing a nice passive solar feature, which is shading your house, right, from the hot summer sun in the summertime. So they're keeping your house nice and cool. That's the consolation prize. But you can't have solar.
So, and it's a panel that you're talking about that goes on to the house?
Once upon a time, they were panels. Now, the beautiful news is we have still some great, these panels will produce the most amount of energy. If you're looking for power density and you want to have the most energy produced per square foot, then you're going to use a monocrystalline solar panel. But if for a slightly lower efficiency, if you can cover a whole roof, particularly wonderful for new construction, are these building integrated products. They're called BIPV, and it's building integrated photovoltaics. And we've put them, they have thin films, so you've heard about those, they're flexible, so you can roll them down in mats, particularly on a standing seam metal roof. Fabulous. You just roll them down those little channels, and they vanish. And so you don't even know they're up there. That a lot of people don't really want to look at it. Well, we can solve that problem too. We don't have these constraints we once had. The solar, is exploding, and some people who aren't aware of it are just oblivious to what's going on. But every year when I go to the solar show out in California in October, there's so many more vendors. 10 times as many as there were the year before. So they're all trying to come up with these innovative products, that will allow us to really do some amazing work and not upset the people who are trying to maintain the aesthetic. That's the value of your home. Your home is for many people, your single, largest investment. We don't want to mess with that. We want that to remain valuable, so we're going to make this beautiful. You can build awnings, right? I can build kind of roof structures over a patio. So if you've been hoping for a patio off the southern side of your house, you can build these beautiful awnings. There's so many creative things we can do.
And the awning will, in fact, double as a collector of the solar energy?
Exactly, and provide shade.
And then once it's collected in the awning or on the roof to this southern exposure, how does it get converted into doing what it has to do inside your house?
Sure. It's so simple. The light hits these panels or these flexible thin films, whatever it's hitting. It's really just it's photons, and they're knocking electrons loose, and they create something called DC or direct current electricity. And that's just like what you have in your battery, or what you have in a flashlight when you turn on a flashlight. So that direct current needs to become alternating current. So you're right. We run wires. So we're going to figure out some way to hide the conduit that's encasing those wires. You want to make sure you talk about that, again, for the aesthetic consideration. And then you get that to your electrical panel. That area will put an inverter that changes it from DC electricity to alternating current, and that's all. That's the brains of the system. So solar panels have no moving parts. They're solid-state technology. That's why they last 40 to 50 years. That's kind of the component people are missing, is that they talk about 25 years a lot. That's the warranty period. In the first 25 years, it's going to produce 80% of what it was claiming it would produce when you purchased it 25 years later. So 80% 25 years later, needless to say, this technology has incredible endurance. And it's tough. It's tough stuff. It's just, it lasts for a very long time.
All right. We have more questions on this. Is very exciting stuff. But right now we're going to meteorologist Bill Evans in the Weather Center.
Going to be a great night tonight around the area. We're going to have clear skies. You can see the half moon out there and the stars. It'll be very comfortable. 64 with that light south-southwest wind.